What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Thursday edition of the Stokastic NHL Strategy Show, sponsored by BetMGM. I am your host, Josh Harris. Joining me, as always, for this randomly small 5-game Thursday slate is Slim Cliffy. How are we doing today, Cliffy?
Not too bad, man. Yeah, it is pretty weird to see a 5-game Thursday slate. I know we've had some pretty weird scheduling in the last couple of weeks, especially around the Thanksgiving holiday. Not sure exactly what's going on in the NHL. We'll talk about Nashville in a second. They're on the slate going into Tampa Bay. They've had a weird schedule lately as well. They had those 2 games postponed because of flooding in the arena. So they effectively went a week at the end of November without a game, and then they play 2 or 3 games or something like that, and then the NHL had them scheduled for a week off. This team hasn't played since last Friday. So Nashville's over the last 3 weeks, give or take, Nashville's had 2 weeks off, which is pretty weird for a team in the middle of the NHL season. I guess not as weird as we've seen with COVID pauses, specifically last season, but we haven't had those issues this year. This is just scheduling plus a flood. I want to know why they landed on 5 games today. Like, it just feels pretty weird to only have 5 games on a Thursday. I don't know. I guess there is a pretty big DraftKings tournament. Well, not pretty big, but a significant, let's call it, DraftKings tournament that we have tonight. And last I checked, it was getting pretty close to filling, about 75%. So that's a good sign. Why don't you tell some of the people about that?
Yeah. And I got some glitter on my hat. Very nice. Yeah. But random 5-game slate tonight, random 10-game slate tomorrow. Maybe Gary Bettman just got his days confused, which is certainly possible. He should watch more Sesame Street since he is the Count. He probably can figure out what day of the week it is. Let's look at this contest here. They added a new MME contest, a $5 150 max, because we've been clamoring for it because the 15 is just ridiculous. And anyone who enters the 15 with 150 will also enter the 5 with 150. It is a $5 150 max, a $22,500 prize pool called the Poke Check Special, which is a small GPP really, but like it gives people an MME option to go 150 for $750 instead of $2,250, which is a huge difference. And it's currently about 3,800 entrants in there right now. The prize pool or the cap is 5,300. So it's on pace to fill. And if it fills, hopefully they grow it a little bit. I'm not expecting it to grow like massively, but if we can get like, 5, 7.5, 10K to first with like a, $30,000 prize pool, that is a nice MME option going forward. It even got me off the MME couch. I'm putting 150 in there tonight. I have some, been asking Jake and our pal, Mr. G, and you, fantasy cruncher questions all day. They're probably going to be tired of me. They're probably going to block me and ignore me, but so far so good. I'm running a crunch right now. It is actually spitting out 150, which is insane considering the rules I put in, which is fun. I'm going to mess around with it. We do have some news that we have to get through before I start like actually getting a CSV going, but got 150 on the first try. They're real players in real lineups. We'll see how it goes. Twitter tells me it's impossible to lose with 150, so we'll see.
Yeah, exactly. You have 150 lineups. You can play every combination there is.
I'm also a diva, so I got a nice huge glass of water here.
Yeah, that's not a glass. That's closer to a goblet, I think.
There's a goblet of H2O.
Yeah. Yeah. If anybody may be new to MME, I mean, one of the reasons this is a nice contest is it gives a price point between the 50-cent 150 max and the $15 150 max, right? Like it gives you something to max out, other than paying $75 or $22,250, which is, a little bit of a difference. So it is nice to have that. We do have a video up on the Stokastic DFS YouTube channel that I did before the season about how to use Fantasy Cruncher. maybe talking a little bit fast in the video. I tend to do that
it was very good. I even understood it. I have an IQ of 2. I was born next to a nuclear power plant, so if I can do it, all y'all can do it.
Yeah, so go check that out. Maybe if you're new to MME, specifically playing 150 lineups, that's up there. We'll be in Discord, obviously.
Jake just put the link in the chat, so if you want to check it out, what a good guy Jake is, having that queued up.
Yeah, staying on top of things. And we'll be in Discord for the members that might have any questions moving forward. But yeah, it's a nice contest to have. Hopefully, you can get filled. Even if it doesn't grow that much, even if it just stays at like 5,500 entries and 25 or K pool or whatever it might be, I think just having that option would be nice for NHL. But yeah, pretty wild slate last night. A lot of times we joke with an early goal or two, oh, slate's over, shut the laptop, go do something else, et cetera, et cetera. But in all honesty, the slate was over in about 20 minutes last night. Tage Thompson, 4 goals and an assist in the first period, added another goal in the second period, finished the game with 5 goals, 1 assist, over 70 DraftKings points. I didn't have Tage Thompson last night. My lineup finished with fewer than 80 points, so Tage Thompson nearly outscored my entire lineup last night as I game stacked Edmonton and Ottawa. Just like it's a second 6-point game of the season, which is just bananas to think about. But yeah, just one of those games that just happens out of nowhere. It feels bad if you don't have them. Connor McDavid did his best to drag everybody from the depths. Anybody that stacked Edmonton last night, he had a 4-point game, but a 4-point game felt like a letdown compared to what we saw from Tage Thompson. And the thing is it wasn't just Tage either, right? Like Alex Tuck had a goal and 3 assists. Rasmus Dahlin had a goal and 2 assists. Dylan Cousins had a goal and 2 assists. Jeff Skinner had 4 assists. Like everybody on the top power play unit had 20 points last night. You weren't getting anywhere without those guys. So if you had them, congratulations. If you didn't, you probably got a good night's sleep last night because you weren't sweating hockey into the early morning.
Yeah. I didn't have Tage Thompson in GPPs or cash. GPP, I suffered because of it. Cash, I surprisingly faced a boatload of Tage Thompson, but somehow managed to survive that because a lot of them had Georgiev, maybe. I don't know, but I did all right in cash. GPPs, even though I had McDavid and I had Cousins and I had Ullmark, I was like 3 miles left of the green. So we're back at it tonight. We like this 5-gamer. Let's get into it. But before we do, give us a like and subscribe so you can keep up with all of our shows, DFS offers, giveaways, and much more. Once you subscribe, hit that notification button to get alerts when our shows go live. Don't forget, we are available on podcast form on the platform of your choice. Help us out by leaving a 5-star review. What does that say? Oh, yeah. So we have Sorry, I'm like a squirrel today. Yesterday I was like lacking energy. Today I have ADD. Let's get into this slate. The Los Angeles Kings there it is. We are off to a rip-roaring start. 2.7 total heading into Toronto. The Maple Leafs have a 3.4 total. Avery's laughing at me. Phoenix Copley is probable. Ilya Samsonov is confirmed. Arthur Kaliev still up on the top line. Yeah. And it looks like the Leafs lines are the same. Nicholas Robertson hanging up in there in the top 6. Avery's just, killing me right now.
Sorry. Got disconnected somehow. Don't know what happened there.
Oh, I didn't hear you. Yeah. Well, here you are. They're like, now the Kings lines are there's like 3 lines you can play here. Because now Adrian Kempe is a center on DraftKings. On the Leaf side, we're still with those ridiculous. Well, they're not ridiculous lines. They've been working, but Matthews is still with Nylander. Tavares is still with Marner. I don't know if I'll full stack, the Leafs lines here. I would power play stack them. Kings penalty kill, not great. Kings have a lowish total, but it is 2.7 on the road. I think there's stuff to like on both sides.
Yeah, the only road team with a reasonable total today is Winnipeg. We'll get to them later. Every other team's 2.7 or 2.8. So if you're playing a road team that's not Winnipeg, you're just going to have to deal with that total. Yeah, I wrote up John. You mentioned the Kings penalty kill, the Toronto power play. I did write up John Tavares in the picks article up on Stokastic.com. Just head to the NHL section, free to read for anybody that wants to check it out. I did write about John Tavares. He's having his best offensive season since his first year in Toronto, at least to this point. He's pacing for 40 goals and over 80 points, which would be a really good year from him. A big reason he's scoring so much is the power play. He has been really a big part of that power play, which, he has had good power play seasons in the past, but you typically think of Austin Matthews or maybe even your old buddy Mitch Marner when it comes to power play production. But Tavares is already up to 7 power play goals this year. He only had 10 all of last year. He had 6 the year before that in that bubble season with 56 games. So he already has more power play goals this year than he did 2 years ago in fewer than half the games. He's really been a difference maker with the man advantage. And it's not a big shooting percentage bender either. He is at a 4-year high in shooting percentage at 14.1% overall. But I was looking at his power play numbers for his entire career, basically, and he's shooting more per minute on the power play than he ever has before, and it's not really close. And it's only his 3rd best shooting percentage on the power play of his career. So he's shooting a lot more. He's not necessarily the most efficient he's ever been, but he's on pace to have far and away his best power play season. He has just been really absolutely dynamic with the man advantage. So thinking about all that and knowing all that, it kind of lends me to go into Toronto too, which would be with Marner and Robertson. Now, they don't have a huge sample together. Tavares and Robertson have played a bit together this year, not so much with Marner because that Marner-Nylander switch just came recently. But they have been what we've kind of described them as being this entire season. They've been really good offensively, but they also give it up on the defensive end. So we could probably expect a pretty high pace between that Toronto second line and the Kings second line, that Arvidsson, Danault, and Moore line. So I'm expecting some pretty big fireworks when those two lines are on the ice. So I do like Toronto 2 here tonight, but I kind of agree with you that I think I would lean towards a power play stack. In that picks article, what I did write up about the Kings power plays on the season across the NHL, 20th in shots allowed, 29th in goals allowed per minute. Over just the last 4 weeks, 27th in shots allowed, 31st in goals allowed. Like they're allowing the second most goals per minute when they're down a man in the NHL over the last 4 weeks. The penalty kill just keeps on getting worse. They don't give up a ton of power plays. They're around league average for the season. But when you're that bad, and Toronto's power play has typically been very good, just 3 or 4 power plays can result in a couple goals against. So I really do like Toronto too. I agree with you. I would lean more towards some sort of power play stack. And I think, you just include Matthews along with him. So like a Matthews, Tavares, Marner, Matthews, Nylander, Tavares, something like that. It's the 2 centers that I really do like in this game. It's kind of hard to get away from Marner when he's on like a 20 game point streak at this point, and he's actually starting to shoot the puck a little bit as well. On a slate this small, I think you're fine to just 5-man stack the entire top power play unit as well. Put, Matthews, Marner, Nylander, Tavares, and Rasmus Sandin. Put them all on there if you want. There are only 10 teams on this slate here tonight, and Toronto does have a 3.4 total. I don't know, the Los Angeles goaltending kind of is what it is. Peterson's still down in the AHL. Jonathan Quick hasn't been very good. Phoenix Copley's been in and out of the NHL, I think, for very good reason. This could be a pretty good offensive game from the Leafs. So I do like some sort of power play stack best. If I was going to stack an even strength line, it would be Robertson, Tavares, and Marner. But I'd probably try to find a way to get Matthews and those guys in the lineup. On the Kings side, the danger of small-ish samples. It's not a tiny sample of the Bunting, Matthews, Nylander line together. 125 minutes is probably about 10 games worth when you can at 5-on-5 when you consider the ice time levels that Bunting gets. 3.1 expected goals against per 60 minutes. That was one of the reasons why I did like Dallas in that last game when Toronto was in Dallas, and Dallas ended up getting shut out, and Matt Murray ended up having one of the best games in modern NHL regular season history. But 3.1 expected goals against, only 0.9 actual goals against, and it's because that goaltending has just been absolutely absurd for the Leafs over the last few weeks. I think the Kings top line is in play here because I don't, they did get TJ Brody back, but the Leafs are still a little bit banged up on the blue line. Sandin and Liljegren are still playing a ton of minutes. Maybe their minutes go down a little bit with Brody back. We'll see. But, Fiala and Kopitar have been very, very good together this year. Expected goals, I believe, north of 3, goal scoring north of 3. They just started Arthur Kaliev, who, didn't have a great first game there. He only had one shot on goal, I think, no points, but has typically been very good this year. Kopitar and Fiala play like 18, 20 minutes, both on the top power play unit. Toronto's penalty kill has typically been good. But the Kings do draw more power plays per game than the Leafs do. And, maybe the Kings can get like 4 chances or something on the PP here. Fiala, Kopitar, and Kaliev not coming in with that much ownership, coming in at around 5% owned, which I think is perfectly acceptable on a 5-game slate. I think both Kings top lines are in play here. It feels chasing points to go to Kings 2 because of what Arvidsson did in the last game, but I do like both the Kings top lines. I would probably just lean to the line that I think will get a little bit more ice time, and that'd be Fiala, Kopitar, and Kaliev. But Kings 1 and Kings 2, I think, are both very playable here as mid-tier lines. It's just I like the Toronto power play the best in this game.
Yeah, hard to ignore the Toronto power play here. I do like the Kings. Like the road teams' totals are very low, like you mentioned. Predators haven't played since like Thanksgiving, it feels like. So yeah, I don't mind getting to some Kings here, especially with that top. Like if Matt Murray had an average game the other night, like the Dallas top line would have scored like 4 goals. So I don't know. I don't mind going back to the Kings top line here where their ownership is fairly decent. It's coming in around 5%, so I think that's fine. Before we get to the blue line, I see we have a super chat put up on the screen. Our pal Nihas just gave us some money without asking a question. Thanks.
I mean, we'll take it. Yeah. Anybody just wants to dump money into us, we'll absolutely take it.
Thanks.
Thanks,
maybe me and Cliffy will go to Denny's and get a Grand Slam tomorrow.
Haven't been to a Denny's in a long, long time.
I have never been to a Denny's.
What? How's that possible? And I live in Canada.
I don't know.
Weird. All right.
I don't know. Anyway.
I feel like that should be on your list of things to do in 2023.
Yeah, or I have gout. I don't know if adding Denny's to the portfolio is a great idea.
Yeah, me. All right. That's a good point.
Let's get to the blue lines here. If you're going to use Kings 1, I think Drew Doughty's fine at 4,800. Like that price is fine. Like Sean Dursey is $100 cheaper. As you dropped into Discord, he has 12 points in his last 10 games. On the Leaf side, I think Giordano's still fine at 4,200. Sandin 3,200 with the top power play. Justin Hull also fine.
Yeah, Rasmus Sandin was the guy that I mentioned in that picks article. He's been playing more minutes. Like I said, I don't know how TJ Brody's going to affect that, but it's the power play more than anything that you'd be getting him for or rostering him for. It wouldn't necessarily be those even strength minutes. So, yeah, I really do like Sandin here tonight. Drew Doughty, I was looking through his season. He has 1 game this season with more than 3 shots, and I think it was his first game of the year. So Drew Doughty, he's incredibly point reliant. And as somebody mentioned, as Greg mentioned in our chat, it's something we brought up on prior shows. King's second power play unit, the one with Dursey and Arvidsson and Dano and those guys, getting more ice time and scoring more often than the Kings' top, quote, top power play unit. So I do like Dursey here in this game. A little bit more than Doughty, but if you want to correlate Doughty with Kings 1 or something like that, I wouldn't object to it.
For sure. Let's move on to the next one. Nashville Predators with a 2.8 total. Heading into Tampa Bay, the Lightning have a 3.6. UC Saros probable. Brian Elliott confirmed. Tampa mixing up their lines at Morning Skate. Brendan Hagel, Braden Point is with Anthony Cirelli. Nick Paul is in between Stamkos and Kucherov. That is interesting. Rest of the lines don't really matter. Predators, I don't know if they skated, but their last game they had Granlund, Parssinen, Duchesne, then Forsberg, Sissons, Janot. Like, if Vasilevsky was in net, I would almost just be like, nah, I don't want any Predators. But Brian Elliott's in net. That's a big step down. As my crunch just finished, and I only have 6.7% Yossi, so I don't think I clicked the rule that says use Jake's defensive numbers. We'll have to check on that. But this is a Tampa game for me. But with Brian Elliott in net, I think you don't have to full stack anything, but maybe you consider some power play guys on the Pred side.
Yeah, I will get to Nashville in a second. I was prepared to just completely X them out with Vasi starting, but like you said, with Brian Elliott in net, it does change things up a little bit. Like, I know Vasilevsky hasn't had the best season, but Elliott's 6 save percentage on the year, and he's given up 17 goals in his last 5 games, like well over 3 goals per game. So you can't just completely ignore Nashville here. We'll start with the Tampa lines. Hagel, Point, Cirelli. I gotta think that line is the one that's going to be used in a shutdown matchup, right? Like, I think that's why they're putting Point and Cirelli together without either Stamkos or Kucherov. It's to get Stamkos and Kucherov softer matchups. Now, I don't know exactly how that's going to work out in this one. Like,
I'm not sure it matters, to be honest.
That's kind of what I was getting at. Like, I'm not sure it makes a huge deal which line you match up against Nashville. I think it's just something to look forward to. And another thing that we brought up when Nashville had that time off because of that leak or that water flood or leak or whatever at their arena. Before COVID hit, the NHL used to have bye weeks. And one of the things they found after a few years of bye weeks is that teams coming off the bye, having, more than 5 days off, typically perform pretty poorly in their first game back, which kind of makes sense, right? Like, you're getting out of your rhythm of, and your normal habits of what you would do if you're on the road or at home, what you might eat, when you might sleep, practice and all those things. Like, you just do kind of get out of a rhythm a little bit. And there's not a ton of data, but there's like 4 years worth of bye weeks, I think, where they showed that teams coming off the bye just really performed extremely poorly, whether offensively, whether just winning games. It didn't really matter. Think Nashville's already had that happen to them, right? Like, when they returned from their most recent week off, I guess, when they had that flood, they beat Anaheim, but it was 2-1 in overtime, right? And Anaheim's, it's tough to say they're the worst defensive team in hockey, having just watched that Columbus-Buffalo game last night, but they're close to it if they're not the worst team in hockey. And it just kind of highlights some struggles teams can have when they do have, when they do have an extended break. So I think you just go to the Tampa side here tonight. I'm wondering what ownership is going to look like here, because they do have new lines, and they also ran new power play units at practice this morning. The top power play was Hagel, Perry, Kucherov, and Stamkos with Victor Hedman, and then Cirelli, Nick Paul, Alex Killorn, Ross Colton with Mikhail Sergachev. Now, you'll notice we didn't say Braden Point there. They didn't have Braden Point on either of the power play units. They had him penalty killing. After the practice, the coach didn't outright say that, yes, Point will be on the power play, but he said he wanted to give the penalty kill a different look, which I think makes sense. One thing that we've been harping on for about a month now on this show is that the Tampa Bay penalty kill has really looked shaky a lot of the times. And I think, maybe they just wanted to give Braden Point an extended look on that penalty kill, give him some extra work. It's just, where's he going to slot on the power play? My guess is he goes to that top power play unit with Stamkos, Kucherov, and Hagel and replaces Corey Perry. But maybe he replaces Hagel, and Corey Perry's just kind of like a net front guy for them or something like that, right? So don't know exactly what's going to happen. I'm assuming Point's just going to stay on the top power play unit with Kucherov and Stamkos, but obviously that breaks up that power play unit. So you have Hagel and Point on the top line, on the top power play unit, Stamkos, Kucherov on the second line. So that's why I wondered, do people stay away from Braden Point thinking that he's not going to be on the power play? Do people just, stack Point, Kucherov, Stamkos, and then leave Hagel out, that type of thing? So I'm kind of interested to see how ownership works out in this game. I was looking historically how Kucherov and Stamkos have done without Braden Point, and no surprise, pretty well. 170 minutes together without Braden Point as their center over the last 3 years. 3.2 expected goals for, 4.3 actual goals for. Those are really good offensive numbers at 5-on-5. And the Nashville penalty kill, not very good. It's been that way pretty much all season. They do take a lot of penalties as well, 3.6 times shorthanded per game. Tampa Bay is amongst the league leaders in drawing power plays, so Tampa should see a lot of power plays in this one, especially with Nashville coming off that long layoff. So if I had to just even strength stack a line, it would probably be Paul, Stamkos, and Kucherov. But I think the approach I would take would be something like we just talked about with Toronto, where you include the power play guys across two even strength lines. So you put Point with Stamkos and Kucherov, you put Hagel with Stamkos and Kucherov. You do something like that. It's not even that expensive to stack them, especially if you use Hagel, where he's under 5K. Victor Hedman is only 5K on DraftKings. We'll talk about the defenseman in a little bit, but I do like the Tampa power play guys here, specifically the top PP unit. If you're worried about Point, then just don't use him. Just do like a Kuch, Stamkos, Hedman power play stack, and then just be on your way. But I do think Point will be there. On the Nashville side, what do we do? I have to think they're going to use that Hagel, Point, Cirelli line as the shutdown line against Granlund and Duchesne. Now, whether that's actually what they do, who knows? Don't know exactly how this is going to work out with Nashville just recently changing their lines. With Nashville having so much time off, with Tampa just changing their lines. It is kind of a little bit wonky, but here's what one thing I did look up was Duchesne and Granlund have actually played a lot without Philip Forsberg over the last few years. And I don't think anybody will be surprised, but without Philip Forsberg, their offensive numbers are pretty bad. Granlund and Duchesne in over 400 minutes together at 5-on-5, 2.3 expected goals for, 1.4 actual goals for. They're just not scoring. They're not really generating that much when they're on the ice. So I'd be out on Granlund, Parsonen, and Duchesne here in this game. If anything, I would probably go to that Forsberg, Sissons, Jeannot line. Forsberg and Jeannot haven't really played that well together in their sample. But I have a feeling that Stamkos and Kucherov are going to be a pretty high event line, even with Nick Paul there. Forsberg is a guy that can just go out and get you 2 goals with the shot bonus on DraftKings by himself without, Nashville doing a whole lot around him. So at the least, I don't mind Forsberg as kind of like a contrarian-ish one-off here tonight. Don't mind if you want a 2-man with Jeannot or something like that. That's about it that I would do from Nashville. And I'll be honest, I don't have a lot of interest in that team in general.
Yeah. In 1 to 3, I think the decision is easy just to fade Nashville here. In 150, if I can figure out how to do what I want with them, it'll probably be pretty low owned. Yossi, on the other hand, I might have a fair bit of. So let's get to the blue line here. 8,700 Yossi, I think, is fine. It's expensive. Not going to go out of my way to force him in, but if he's there, he's there. I think Ekholm's fine at 3,500. Carrier at 2,800 is fine. On the Tampa side, Victor Hedman all the way down to 5K. Now is on the top power play unit. Kind of figured that was going to happen at some point. 5K is a good price there. If not, that's probably about it. You're muted.
Yep. Whoops. Forgot to unmute myself again. Should mention that game when Nashville did return against that break when they had that flood in the rink. It was Yossi that carried them to the win pretty much single-handedly. He had a goal, 6 shots, 5 blocks. That's just a monster fantasy game. So yeah, I don't mind Yossi as an expensive defenseman here tonight. He's probably the only Nashville guy that I'm really heavily considering. On the Tampa side, yeah, it's probably Victor Hedman or nothing for me. I was looking at Sergachev's numbers this year. I think it's over half his points have come on the power play this year. So if you take that top power play away from him, how much value does he actually have? So I don't want to pay the extra $900 for Sergachev on FanDuel, and on DraftKings, and I certainly don't want to pay $7,300 for Sergachev on FanDuel. So I think Ian Cole, if you need like a really cheap defenseman, I think he's passable, but it's Victor Hedman or Yossi, I think, out of this one. I'll mention Alexandre Carrier as well, just because he's been playing more minutes since McDonough went down. Maybe he can get you some blocks in his 20 or 21 minutes here tonight.
Yep, I agree there. As we mentioned off the top, we are sponsored by BetMGM, and we can get you an offer where you get a risk-free bet up to $1,000 and 2 months of Stokastic Platinum for free. All you got to do is sign up. You have to create a Stokastic membership. You can do that for free. If you have one, just log in. Then you create a BetMGM account, deposit at least $10, depending on your risk tolerance for your free bet. You can go 10, minimum 10, maximum 1,000. Deposit, make your bet. Your bet must settle to qualify. Then you'll receive an email from BetMGM, not Stokastic. The email will be from BetMGM with instructions for redeeming your 2 free months of Stokastic Plus Platinum. Click the link in the description for more details and sign up. This is an excellent deal. Wouldn't wait because I've been told that it's going to go from 2 free months of Stokastic Plus Platinum down to 1. So take advantage of that now. Let's move on to the next game. We have the Detroit Red Wings with a 2.7 total. Heading into Florida, the Panthers have a 3.7 total. Alexander Barkov possibly back, maybe back, probably back. The coach is going to speak at 5 p.m. Eastern. Sounds like he's trending towards being in. I don't know. That's just my interpretation of it. If that is the case, that top line, if it is Verhaeghe, Barkov, Tkachuk, I have a lot of interest in. These Red Wings lines just don't do too much for me. I don't want to say I'm going to X them out completely. Maybe I have a little bit of the top line in MME, but in 1 to 3, I think I'm going to take a pass on them.
Yeah, it's one of those things that's kind of tough to say what exactly that I really like or would like to do with Florida. The coach said he's not going to speak on his lineup until 5 o'clock Eastern. He'll talk to the media, so we won't know for 2.5 hours exactly what's going on with Florida. And it's not only Barkov. Anton Lundell, they said there's a chance that he might be back for tonight's game as well. So they could get back both their I'd call them their top 2 centers, whether you want to call Lundell the third line center or whatever. That's up to you. But the other thing we have to talk about is if Barkov comes back, he's been out, I think they said 6 games with pneumonia. I don't know how NHL players would fare when returning from pneumonia. It'd be a pure guess. If people are scared about a player returning from that after a couple weeks off and don't want to play him, perfectly acceptable. What I will say is that before he left the lineup, that top line of Verhaeghe, Barkov, Tkachuk was, as you might say, Josh, absolute nitrous when they were on the ice together. Over 100 minutes at 5-on-5, 5.1 expected goals for per 60 minutes, 53 shots on goal per 60 minutes, 5.9 goals per 60 minutes. That's like a low-grade power play every time that they're on the ice. like almost 6 goals almost a goal every 10 minutes of 5-on-5 ice time, shooting 11%. It's not like this is a line like Montreal 1 was earlier in the year, shooting like 26% or something like that. 11%. That's perfectly reasonable for a Barkov-Tkachuk line. So a really good spot for that Detroit top, or for that Florida top line, especially where they're probably going to see a fair bit of Perron, Larkin, and Raymond. The defensive numbers, not really that great, especially with Raymond there for that line. I really do like that spot for Florida 1 here. Like, they're not coming in with that much ownership, all things considered. On DraftKings, we have them coming in around 13%. On FanDuel, a lot lower than that, because they are, pretty expensive. If you do use the 3 of them, like, they're $26,600 on FanDuel. So we have them a lot lower on there, but the ownership very much in check on both sites for them. I wonder how the power play is going to work out, because before Barkov left the lineup, they were using Barkov, Tkachuk, Reinhart, and then Montour and Ekblad. When Barkov left the lineup, they added Verhaeghe to the top power play unit. So in a dream world, with Barkov back, they leave Verhaeghe there and boot Montour off, but I don't think that's what they're going to do. I think they're going to leave Montour and Ekblad on that top power play unit. So I imagine Verhaeghe loses his power play status if Barkov's in the lineup, but that's kind of the trade-off that you get, is like Verhaeghe gets back the center that he's been so productive with over the last couple of years. He just loses his power play role. I mean, Detroit doesn't take a lot of penalties, to be honest. 2.8 times shorthanded per game. That's well below league average. League average is at about 3.3. Now, the penalty kill itself has been on a little bit of a slide, but they don't take a lot of penalties. So maybe, Florida doesn't get a lot of opportunities, and Verhaeghe gets some more 5-on-5 ice time as a result. But like, if Barkov's in and you don't have any trepidation about him returning from that illness, they're probably the best line on this slate. Maybe Dallas. We'll talk about that in a second. So I really do like Verhaeghe, Barkov, Tkachuk here. It's what to do with the rest of the lineup. Lundell and Reinhart had been pretty good together. 2.7 expected goals for, 2.0 actual goals. Reinhart, top power play unit. Their problem this year has just been shooting percentages. Lundell and Reinhart are shooting more than they were last year. Reinhart's shooting more than he ever has in his career on a per minute basis. It's just that their shooting percentages are down across the board. If those can normalize, the fantasy production is just going to, really take off here. So, they are getting some ownership, but I think it's probably fine to do like a 2-man of Lundell and Reinhart, even Lundell and Cousins or something like that, if you're worried about the Florida power play. But the Florida power play was pretty good with Montour and Ekblad there, the double defense. So, like, I don't have huge concerns about them. Really do like Florida 1. Don't mind a 2-man of Lundell and Reinhart either, presuming that Lundell's in the lineup. On the other side, Perron, Larkin, and Raymond is a line that I do have a little bit of interest in. And the reason is Florida's one of the most penalized teams in the league. 3.8 times shorthanded per game. And Detroit is above average in drawing power plays, 3.7 power play opportunities per game. Like, Detroit could easily see 4, maybe 5 power plays in this game. And Larkin and Perron have been very good on the power play together. That was one thing we talked about, before the season started, when the season started, is the impact Perron could have on the power play for Detroit. And he certainly has to this point, at least when they put them together, because they have been moving the guys around the power play units a little bit. But Larkin's already up to 9 power play points this year. He had 13 all of last season, right? Like, the difference is very, very noticeable. Florida penalty kill, good, not super elite or anything. Bobrovsky's probably going to be in net tonight after coming in for Spencer Knight in the last game. Knight getting shelled a little bit. So you get Bobrovsky, you might get a lot of power plays. Not seeing a ton of Detroit ownership in our top stacks tool either, coming at about 8%. They're very reasonably priced, $16,200 on DK, more expensive on FanDuel, so they'll be lower owned. But I do like Detroit 1 as one of those mid-price lines. If you want to dip down and do like a 2-man of like Sunkfist and Kopp or something like that, I think that's fine. but it's Detroit one that I like more than anything on the Detroit side. And, Florida one, maybe Florida 3 if Lundell is back.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see what the coach says at 5 o'clock. I don't know if he's going to even give lines, but hopefully we get news on Barkov and Lundell. That would change things if either one of them or both of them are out. So we'll have to wait and see at 5 o'clock what they say. Let's move to the blue line here. I like Ekblad. I also like Montour, but I prefer Ekblad. I think Forsling's fine as well if you're not power play stacking, but I'd rather just go to Ekblad in that situation. On the Detroit side, Hronik's fine with that top power play unit. That's probably about it. Olimata, I guess, is fine as a punt.
Yeah. What I'll mention about Brandon Montour is Ekblad's been back in the lineup from his injury for it's been nearly a month now. It's about 4 weeks. Montour is only averaging 9.6 DraftKings points per game since Ekblad got back. He's been losing his peripherals quite a bit, and his price hasn't really taken that big of a dive yet. It has come down, but he's still more expensive than Ekblad on DraftKings, which just feels absolutely bonkers considering their history. Still 7,500 on FanDuel. I think if you want to play Montour to kind of get away from Ekblad's ownership, as he will be higher owned, then go ahead. But I think Ekblad overall is just a better play here. On the Detroit side, Hronik, don't mind him for his price. The Detroit power play has been better with Hronik than Cedar, which is something that's probably important to note here. And obligatory Jake Wallman mention.
Yep. Contractual obligation. I don't mind him. He's 2,600 tonight. When he gets up into the low threes, I don't want to play him, but 2,600, I'll take some stabs. As we've mentioned this week, we are still continuing this. If you've never been a Stokastic member, you can get NHL for 3 days for free. It's a risk-free trial, and you get full access to everything that we have to offer in NHL: projections, ownership, top stacks tools, rankings, everything you need to have success at NHL DFS. You can join the community. You can give everything. We have a test drive to see if you like it, which you will. Let's be honest, you're going to like it. And you can continue your membership after that, but you have a risk-free trial for 3 days. So click the link in the description, sign up, and enjoy your 3 free days. Let's get to the flowchart, boys, shall we? Winnipeg Jets with a 3.1 total heading into St. Louis. The Blues have a 2.9 Hellebuck probable. Tomas Greiss confirmed the grease fire in net for the Blues. Blues going Shen, O'Reilly, Levo, Kyrou, Thomas, Tarasenko. That means Buchnevich is out again. Looks like Torrey Krug also going to be out again tonight. Winnipeg running back Perfidi, Scheifele, Wheeler, and Connor Dubois, and Michael Esimimon. Flowchart here would say this is a fairly good matchup, so you probably should fade, but it's kind of a gray area because, the O'Reilly line is pretty good defensively. The Blues are just not great, but they have a fairly good roster, so I'm getting error messages in the flowchart here. I think it's okay to play them. They're coming in their ownership's in check, and I think that's one of the factors when consulting the flowchart. If they're chalk in this kind of matchup, then you're probably should fade, but they're getting their ownership's in check, so I think it's fine to play them. On the Blues side, they're actually getting more ownership than the Jets here tonight, as Hellebuck just got confirmed. I don't mind going to the Thomas Tarasenko line. I also don't mind the Shen, O'Reilly, Levo line.
Yeah. The defense, something to talk about here, because you're right. In a nutshell, O'Reilly and Levo have been pretty good defensively this year. Just the two of them together, 2.4 expected goals against, 3.0 actual goals against, but thanks Bennington. The issue is Braden Shen. Braden Shen and Ryan O'Reilly have pretty bad defensive numbers together going back a couple years. And it's something that we've talked about on prior shows when Shen was on the third line with Jordan Kyrou, to pick against them because the defense was so bad. And I do wonder if Schen's just kind of getting to the point where he's just more of like a power play specialist type that needs to be hidden down the lineup rather than be on the first line. But Schenn, I think, will kind of drag that line down defensively, and that definitely works into Winnipeg one's favor. Scheifele, Wheeler, and Perfidi have been really, really good together, which is both surprising and not. I think Cole Perfidi is one of those players that at least some fantasy hockey people I know, like they wanted to see him have a full healthy season this year. He got hurt last year. He was on the Winnipeg second line that really wasn't clicking most of the season. Remember, they were rotating like Evgeny Svechnikov was there for like 50 games or something like that. He's now with Mark Scheifele, and they've looked really good together in the games that I've watched, just in their playmaking. The numbers bear that out. 3.3 expected goals for in nearly 100 minutes together, 4.4 actual goals for. Just really, really good offensive numbers. 2 out of those 3 guys are on the top power play unit as well, Scheifele and Wheeler. And as we talk about when St. Louis is on the show, don't take a lot of penalties, one of the least penalized teams in the league, but probably the worst penalty kill in the NHL, with only Los Angeles really rivaling them. I think this is a pretty decent spot for Scheifele, Wheeler, and Perfidi. So that's the line that I'll look to here tonight. People want to go to Winnipeg too. Like I wouldn't say no. Their numbers haven't been nearly as good offensively. I think it's still a fine matchup going into St. Louis too. St. Louis, that line typically has bad defensive numbers as well. It could be a bad defensive top 6 for St. Louis here. So if you want to go Connor Dubois, that's fine. I was looking at Kyle Connor's numbers. He has 8 shot attempts at 5-on-5 in his last 5 games. Like, he has single games where he's had that many this season, and he only has 8 in his last 5. Like, there's been a little bit of a downturn in his shooting ever since he joined the Pierre-Luc Dubois line, which is a little bit of a concern because one of the reasons you do play Kyle Connor is because he typically puts up a lot of shot volume. Now, I'm saying this as he's coming off a 2-goal, 3.6 shot game. So, he definitely can't get there, especially in this power play spot, which is pretty good for Winnipeg. But I'll just take the line that's playing better. That'll probably play more minutes. We'll probably be on the ice at the end of the game. So I'll go Scheifele, Wheeler, Perfidi here. On the St. Louis side, at these ownership rates, like it'd be Thomas, Tarasenko, and Kyrou. I have no interest in playing Ryan O'Reilly and Josh Lemo and Brayden Schenn at 10% or whatever. It would be Kyrou, Tarasenko, and Thomas. I think the Winnipeg second line will probably be better, a little bit better defensively without Blake Wheeler there. So it could be a sneaky tough matchup. And the Winnipeg power penalty kill itself has been really good. So if anything, St. Louis too. But honestly, I think I like the Winnipeg side more here, specifically their top line.
Yeah, always feels bad liking the Winnipeg Jets, but here we are. I do like that top line as well, especially dusty old Blake Wheeler. Let's get to the blue line. Speaking of dusty, Josh Morrissey, 6,200. Like you just got to drag him along if you're doing anything with the power play. Like you did mention that the Blues don't take many penalties, but their penalty kill's so bad. Like it's just so bad. So I think Morrissey's fine. It's really about it on that side. I guess you could punt Nate Schmidt. On the Blues side, without Torrey Krug, I think Justin Falk is fine. Colton Parayko is fine. I'm not sure who gets a minute bump without Krug. Like, I guess it's one of Callie Rosen or Nico Mikkola, but like I'd rather just play Parayko at 3,700.
Yeah. If I'm not mistaken, none of them got a minutes bump in that Islanders game. They're like, even the most used guys were at like 22, 23 minutes. They did blow out the Islanders, so maybe that was part of it. Nico Mikkola would be a guy that I think might see like 17 or 18 minutes, which is perfectly fine if you need somebody that's min-price. It is Parayko that I like the most on the Blues side, which kind of feels bad to say, and I think highlights my desire to not play any St. Louis Blues defensemen in this game. What I'll say about Josh Morrissey is this. There's something called individual points percentage, and it's the rate at which a player gets a point when a goal is scored with him on the ice for his team. Josh Morrissey's individual points percentage this year is double what it was last year, and it's like 90% higher his 3-year average. He already has as many even strength secondary assists this year as he did all of last year. That's where a lot of his value is coming from, and it's kind of a concern for me where St. Louis doesn't take a ton of penalties, is like that regression is going to hit Morrissey pretty hard eventually. Like, I think he's playable, but honestly, I don't really like any of the Winnipeg defensemen here. I think like Parayko is probably the blue liner I like most in this game.
Yeah, me too, which is me. So let's get to the last game of the night. We have the Ottawa Senators with a 2.8 total. Heading into Dallas, the Stars have a 3.8. Anton Forsberg probable. Jake Ottinger confirmed. Ottawa running back the same top 6. Dallas status quo as well. I mean, Dallas top line is just a juggernaut. They're actually not getting crazy ownership because they're the most expensive line in the night. They're currently projected for around 15, a little bit under 15% here. I think this is a good matchup. They've been playing 18 to 20 minutes, which is way better than, the 15 to 16 to 17 they were last month. Dallas won game for me. Getting to the Senators is the more difficult question because they're coming in, both their top 6 coming in like 6-7%. I think it would be, for me, I would target the line not seeing the Hintz Pavelski Robertson line.
Yeah, since they moved Radek Faksa with Tyler Seguin, they have been using that line as the shutdown line a little bit more at home. They played against the Matthews line when Toronto was in town. So I think Robertson, Hintz, Pavelski is going to see quite a bit of the DeBrincat, Batherson, Pinto line. So I agree with you. I would probably go Kachuk, Stützle, and Giroux. I did write them up in the Power Plays article. A couple things. They're not scoring, but they're generating a lot. 4.5 expected goals for in over the last 3 weeks for Ottawa's top line, but they're shooting 2.6%, which, like, if they shot 3 times that much, it would still be a low shooting percentage. So it just kind of shows what their upside is if those shots do start going in. And Dallas takes a lot of penalties, 3.8 times shorthanded per game this year, and Ottawa draws a lot of power plays, 3.7 power play opportunities per game. Like, Ottawa is another one of those teams that could easily see 4 or 5 power plays in this game. It's one of the reasons why I wrote up the Ottawa top line. The other reason being just such good leverage. We only have them at 6% ownership on DK against 17% top 2 percentage per our top stacks tool. Numbers a little bit lower on FanDuel, 15% top 2 and 4% ownership, but still very playable over on FanDuel. Brady Tkachuk has 25 shots in his last 5 games. He's been getting fewer minutes, but he's been shooting more. So I'll kind of I'll take that trade off. Tim Stützle has been playing 20 minutes a game. His scoring chance generation numbers have just been really, really good this year. They'll get that Dallas second line that has been pretty high event most of the season. Maybe Radek Faksa calms that down a little bit. The sample still isn't very big. But I don't think it's a bad matchup for Ottawa 1. So I don't think you have to get there in single entry. I think they're definitely playable in single entry. If you're playing like 20, 50, 150 lineups, they should absolutely be in your mix. Just for the power play alone, Ottawa's not scoring much at 5-on-5, but the power play has been really, really, really good this year. This specific top power play unit that they're using. So I do like Ottawa 1. On the Dallas side, what do you say? They have arguably the best top line in hockey. They're coming off a shutout. I wrote up Jason Robertson in the picks article. Like I said, they'll probably go up against the Ottawa second line. The Ottawa second line, 3 expected goals against over their last 3 weeks. Not very good defensively. Ottawa also takes a lot of penalties, and their penalty kill, not awful, but not great either. And it's a good power play spot for both sides here. So it's both top lines that I like the best. If you want to dip all the way down to like a 2-man of like Ben Dellandrea or Ben Johnston on the Dallas side, I think that's fine. But it is the top lines I like the most here.
Yep, agreed. Who you liking in? Let's get to the blue line real quickly. I think it's Chabot or Heiskanen, the power play guys. I prefer Chabot as a one-off. Heiskanen is fine as well. Niels Lundqvist up to the top pair at 2,800. I think that's fine. Esa Lindell still the guy I'm looking at. For punts, it's probably going to be Travis Hamonic on the Ottawa side.
Yeah, I worry about ice time because Zaitsev and Holden actually played more than Hamonic in the last game. So if you need a full min punt, I guess Nick Holden is fine. But I do like Shabbat. Wrote him up in the picks article. Like I said, pretty good power play spot for him. He's been playing like 26 minutes a game. So peripherals definitely in play for Shabbat as well. Do like him. For a cheap guy, I think it's probably Esa Lindell. Ottawa has actually been shooting a lot of late, and it brings that block bonus in play for Esa Lindell for DraftKings players.
Yeah, I agree there. Who do you like in net? Like, there's just nothing really jumping off the page for me here.
Yeah, I mean, even though I just said I do like the Ottawa top line, like I also said, they are shooting a lot, so I do like Jake Ottinger in this game. I'm pretty sure he leads our projections. As well. I know he's pretty expensive, 8,300 over on DK, so you have to pay up if you're playing there, but he's only 7,600 on FanDuel, so I think he's arguably the best FanDuel play. Samsonov, super cheap on FanDuel. I think, he's 6,500, 6,700 or whatever it is, so Samsonov on FanDuel. Connor Hellebuck in play on DraftKings for me, where he's a lot cheaper than he is on FanDuel. If you're looking for a really, really cheap goalie, I mean, I guess we'll see who Detroit decides to confirm. If it's Ville Husso, I don't mind Ville Husso going into Florida. Florida will probably be shooting a lot, especially if Barkov's back. So don't mind Husso if you need a really cheap DK goalie.
Yep, I agree there. I don't really have much to add there other than, like, I guess people are going to play Saros at 7K. I just have shot volume concerns because Tampa's so efficient usually. So that's all I'll add. Who are you liking for your hat trick pick?
Talked about him right off the top. Put him in the picks article. Hopefully, you can do some damage and get against our Los Angeles Kings tonight. Going with John Tavares.
I don't know. I've been going off the board recently. I'm still going to do it. I'm going Nick Paul.
Ooh, I like it. Getting spicy with the bolts.
Yeah, a little spice. So, yeah, we'll be back tomorrow for a 10 gamer, which is quite a Friday. Join us for a 10 gamer on Friday. If you're in that new $5, join it. If you're not in it, join it. If you're in it, join it. Fill it up so we can continue that. So we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you to BetMGM. Sign up. Click the link in the description. Good luck, everybody.
Good luck, everyone.